Ecofictologists, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lovis, and today I am bringing you a book review of another lovely short story anthology called And Lately the Sun. It was put together by the Calyx Create Group, which is an international team of science fiction enthusiasts, writers, media types, and generally people who don't want to see humanity crash and burn. Their words. Their website says that the group is registered in Australia as a non-profit association for the purposes of supporting, generating, and disseminating creative works on topics such as science, technology, and the future. Their pilot project is And Lately the Sun, which is a short story anthology of climate fiction. I want to give them a huge thank you because they did send me a copy of this anthology for free as a review copy, which I'm immensely appreciative of. I just wanted to point this out so that you know that it's still going to be a completely honest review. It's still my opinion. The fact that they sent me this copy for free has nothing to do with how much I enjoyed it. On their website, they describe the anthology as gritty, graceful, common sense, or whimsical. These 20 tales probe at how we could build a working world using the resources available to us. The natural, the social, the political, and the technological. So that was the general call for submissions for this anthology. To give you an idea of what kind of stories you could expect. This website is linked down below, so definitely check them out if you're interested for more information. I have to say, I started reading these short story anthologies for this series on this channel, but I think even after this series is finished, I'm gonna keep reading them because they really are wonderful, and the more I look, the more I find. There are actually so many out there, but I'm getting carried away. Let's focus on this one right here and just get into it. Like I did with Sunbolt, I want to highlight a few of my favorite stories that I read in And Lately the Sun. These stories resonated with me for different reasons, and while I enjoyed making my way through the whole anthology, when I was finished, these were the stories that stuck with me. So the first one is called A Light from the Darkness by DesAnges, and I'm really sorry if I completely mangled your name just then. Apologies. And it shows the discovery of a clean energy source that simultaneously cleans up radiation from a fungus that was discovered at the Chernobyl site. I don't want to spoil the whole story. There is kind of a moral twist in it, which makes it really interesting. But what I really loved about this short story were the characters. One starts out as a PhD student working on the fungus as her thesis, and the other is her partner, eventually wife, who is her support system at home. And just the relationship between these two characters is so beautiful, and the author has captured those little moments of banter and kind of tender teasing that when I see it in a couple, I always think of it as a sign of a really loving relationship. So it was a really wonderful thing to read, and I just really enjoyed it. It just made me smile. And of course, the fact that it was a PhD student made it very sympathetic to me. I really identified with this character and the stresses, the trials and tribulations of being a PhD student, we'll put it that way. The scientific idea itself was also really cool, so the story also had that going for it. But just overall, if there was one story that I would choose, if I had to choose just one, from this anthology to read again, this would be it. Just the amount of depth of character that the author created in such a short amount of time is quite impressive. And yeah, bravo. The second story I want to talk about is called The Forgetting by Sofia Mariah, and this one stuck with me because of the aesthetic. The story takes place on like an ocean city, like a ship with a city on it, and the societal classes are all split up into tiers, and the highest tier at the top has all the green and growing things, and that's the highest class of society. The main character in this story is a journeyman carpenter, I suppose, and wood is a really precious resource because the world is pretty well flooded. So all the wood that they find is driftwood that floats by them, or that gets washed up against this ocean floating city. And wood that is hard enough to build furniture out of and stuff is called precious wood because it's so rare. This reminds me of an aesthetic that I discovered a little while ago called tidal punk. I haven't really had time to dive into it completely, so I don't know if this story fits into that aesthetic, but I'm going to find out. I think I'm taking this as an opportunity to go down a research rabbit hole, but pretty much anything with ocean in the aesthetic is going to get to me. So yeah, I like the feel of this story. The story itself was also very beautiful in its own way, looking at wood as such a precious resource, but it was really the aesthetic that got to me. So 10 out of 10 would recommend. The third story I want to talk about is the very last story in the anthology, and it's called From the Rooftops by Jacob Ashton, and I liked this one because it was fairly simple, but it had such a beautiful message. Our characters meet on the rooftop of their office building, which has been converted into allotment space, and you kind of get the feeling that this is a widespread thing, that the flat roofs in the city have all been converted into green spaces, which I love that. I love that idea. One character is quite anxious and she uses the rooftop and the allotment to deal with her anxiety, putting her hands in the soil just calms her down. And the other, well, he's on the rooftop for a completely different reason. He's thinking of jumping off of it. And she doesn't really understand why he's there or what brought him to this point. She doesn't actually even ask right away, but she just says, "Do you want to help me with these lettuce leaves?" And he kind of looks at her and he says, "Yeah, okay." And their friendship kind of builds around this love of the simple little things of growing something in an allotment. Whether it's enough or not, you will have to find out for yourself by reading the story. But I just like that idea that, finding joy in the little things in life and redirecting your nervous, anxious energy into something positive and good. I thought that rounded off the anthology really nicely. So those are my top 3 stories from And Lately the Sun. I hope they give you an idea of what you can expect if you do pick up this anthology. They are by no means the boundaries of the stories that are held in this collection. Some are weirder, some are darker, some are more techie, but there's something for everyone, and these are my tops. One thing I really noticed across all of the stories within this anthology was the emphasis on acceptance of gender and identity fluidity. There were representations of all kinds of love and relationships in these stories, and many examples of different ways of referring to people other than just she and he, which I don't see very often in fiction, unfortunately, and I hope that I start to see more of it. It made the point very clearly that a huge part of building this working world, as the submission call says, is to accept people regardless of whether they identify themselves the same way that you do, and to show them respect in all aspects of life. Societal justice is going to have to be a central pillar in whatever society we decide to build to cope with our world that is changing in so many different ways. I also love that after every short story, there's a little blurb about the author, which tells you a little bit about their vocation and where else they've written and how they view the world. And what struck me was that so many of them were scientists or artists or activists. There were websites to follow, there were actions to support and organizations to discover, and it really gave the feeling that this anthology was a beautiful but small part of an actual movement that is happening to build this working world. I took note of several, and I discovered things that I probably wouldn't have done otherwise, so that was really great. And if you like the style that author writes in, or the viewpoint that they wanted to represent, then you can find what else they've written and you can read more of their stuff and support them that way. So that's all from me today, I think. I hope you have enjoyed this review of And Lately the Sun, a climate fiction short story anthology edited by the Calyx Create Group. Again, their website and links and everything are in the description below, so if you want more information, definitely check them out. If you have read or now want to read this anthology, or if you have any other recommendations for me, pop those down in the comments below. I always enjoy hearing from you, you know that. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel and hit that bell so that you don't miss any content when I post. I post every Wednesday with some occasional bonus content on Mondays. If you like what I do and would like to support me, then head on over to patreon.com/ecofictology. Help me buy my next book, and also support Love the Oceans, a marine conservation organization operating out of Mozambique. If you want to talk about ecofiction in all of its beautiful forms, then join our Rewilding Our Stories Discord server. You'll find scientists, academics, readers, publishers, writers, all forms of ecofiction enthusiasts there. It's a great group. We have a really good time. There's also a Facebook group if Discord isn't your thing, and the link for everything is in the description below. So that's all from me, and I'll see you next week, Ecofictologists.